Or you'll go to Hajj and your Hajj group leader is telling you something different than what you heard. And in fact, you might even be in my group in particular, and there's another sheikh that's leading a different package, but then in Mina, all the different mashayikh get mixed up, and so suddenly you have a lot of panic and confusion because one sheikh is saying, I need to do this, the other sheikh is saying, I need to do that. It is absolutely crucial that you stick to one scholar throughout the entire Hajj process. Before and during, you need to make sure that you're sticking to one scholar. Otherwise, you're going to be in panic mode. I can always tell people that before you get to Mina, that in Mina in particular, in those tents, that's where everyone starts to get into a lot of confusion because everyone gets exposed to everybody else. And so you're going to hear from this teacher and hear from that. And so it's really important for you to understand, inshallah ta'ala, stick to one scholar throughout the entire process of Hajj. And that starts from now because a lot of times you go to a fiqh website, you don't know what type of website you're on, and you get really, really, really confused. Now, the guide that we're going through is Hajj step by step. So it's actually on Hilal Hajj's website. So you could go to hajjpackageusa.com and you can print out the Hajj step by step, the guide that I'm actually going through. I put it together a few years ago, inshallah ta'ala. It's something that you could actually keep with you throughout the Hajj process. Just in case you forget something that we went over here, inshallah, you could carry it around with you. There's no app for this in particular, but you could have it on your phone, inshallah ta'ala, so that you can go back to it whenever you need to throughout the Hajj process. But anyway, before you go, there are some just important essentials to keep in mind when you're talking about Hajj. Number one, obviously renew your intentions. But what does renew your intentions mean when it comes to Hajj? There are many stories that we have from our pious predecessors of people that actually went to Hajj and their Hajj was not accepted. Whereas there were other people that made the intention to go to Hajj and they were not able to, but Allah accepted their Hajj. Your intention is everything here. As one of the Salaf said, one of the pious predecessors said, how many bodies make Tawaf around the Kaaba without hearts, while others have their hearts making Tawaf around the Kaaba without bodies? So some people are there and they're doing Tawaf, but their hearts are not there. Whereas some people are watching it on TV, they're following along the way. They really wanted to go to Hajj, but they were financially not capable of doing so. They were stopped by some other reason, but their hearts are there. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts their Hajj from them, even though they were not able to get there. So there are many different stories that we can take from and draw from that I frankly don't have time to go into right now. But realize the importance of really having this intention here. You also might be going to Hajj, but you don't make it to Hajj. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes your life before then. We're not guaranteed to live for another 2 weeks. So to have that sincerity, inshallah ta'ala, in that intention to actually make Hajj is the way that you assure yourself of the reward. Obviously, why you're doing Hajj, you tell yourself why you're doing Hajj from now. You're doing it for the sake of Allah. You're doing it for forgiveness. You're doing it to fulfill an obligation. Try to really get your sincerity down now, because if you don't have your sincerity with you, you're not going to be able to tolerate the difficulties of Hajj. And you could go there and spend all this money and spend all that time and come back absolutely empty-handed. I'll give you guys one story which is very, very powerful. Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah ta'ala, who used to go out to Hajj every other year. And in one particular year, he went out to Hajj and he saw this dream of his. And in this dream, he saw two angels discussing the situation of the Hujjaj that year. And one angel saying to the other angel, subhanAllah, out of all of these people that have come to Hajj, not a single one of them was worthy of acceptance. So Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah, he woke up and he was sweating, he was distressed by what he saw in his dream. And then he went, he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he went back to sleep and he saw a dream, and the other angel responded and said, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave all of them and accepted all of their Hajj because of Ali ibn al-Mufiq from Ash-Sham, a man by the name of Ali ibn al-Mufiq from Ash-Sham. And he was actually from Damascus. So he woke up, and Abdullah Mubarak went to the people who came from Syria that year, and he said, is Ali ibn al-Mufiq amongst you? He didn't know who he was. They said, they said, Ali ibn al-Mufiq, you mean, the guy that repairs people's shoes? And he said, I don't know who he is. Tell me about him. So he said, Ali ibn al-Mufiq is someone that repairs shoes in Damascus, and he's been trying to save up money his entire life to go to Hajj. And so finally this year he saved up enough money, but when he went to bid farewell to his neighbors, he found them in poverty. So he gave his money to his neighbors, and then he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from him. And he was very distressed that he couldn't go out to Hajj that year, but he thought he did the right thing, that his neighbors were really in need of that money at that time. And he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept. SubhanAllah, and the sincerity of his question, or the sincerity of his request, that he wanted to be accepted by Allah, was so great that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted, obviously, his Hajj. And because of that acceptance, everyone got the benefit of that. So this man didn't even go, right? And this is just a story to remind ourselves of, that it's really about the degree, inshallah ta'ala, of which you want to be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So renew your intentions. This number 2 is meeting your friends and family and asking for forgiveness. You don't want to be held back, when it comes to your Hajj or anything, because you have a grudge with someone, or because you've hurt somebody or oppressed someone or transgressed against someone. This is the same message that we give before Ramadan, and Hajj is a far more rare ibadah than Ramadan is. You're not going to do Hajj as much as you're going to do Ramadan. But we know that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned to us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would see two people that are quarreling, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not look at their deeds until they reconcile amongst one another, until they make peace amongst themselves. So this is the time to really ask people for forgiveness. If you know that there's something between you and somebody else, some sort of transgression, you don't want to go to Hajj and then have that all held back from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you harmed someone and your ego prevented you from seeking forgiveness. So truly seek forgiveness from people, inshallah, before you go. Number 3 is to pay all debts. So seeking forgiveness is paying debts in the spiritual sense. Number 3 is to financially pay those debts if you can, inshallah ta'ala. Now, just from a fiqhi perspective, a jurisprudence perspective, someone might ask, can I go to Hajj if I have a debt, a revolving debt? So for example, I pay monthly on my house. Can I still go to Hajj having that debt? The answer is yes, because your Hajj, going to Hajj will not affect your monthly payment, if you will. Now, let's say I owe somebody money, but at the same time, I want to go to Hajj. In that situation, you want to make sure, obviously, that the person that you owe money to is aware of that, and you need to seek their permission in a way. And what that means is that they have a greater right to be paid back than you going to Hajj at that point. So you want to make sure if you owe somebody money and you're able to go to Hajj, that they understand that you seek their permission to do so, and that it's not going to lead to an unnecessary delay in you paying that person back. So you still should go to Hajj, inshallah ta'ala, if you can, but at the same time, especially with revolving debt, which is the nature of most debt that we have today, if there's something that's due, then make sure that this isn't going to lead to a delay and that you sought permission from the debtor. Number 4 is to prepare your wasiyah, to have your will done. This is something that's obligatory on a Muslim regardless, to have their will done. But realize that you're literally going to Hajj with this mindset that you're not coming back. That's how it works. That's part of the spirituality of it. Mutu qabla an tamutu, that you die before you actually die. You are mimicking the stages of death. So you really need to get your will in place before you leave, inshallah ta'ala, to Hajj, and that's an obligation with or without Hajj. I also have here that there are 2 very important apps to download. There's an app called Hajj Salam, and there is another app called My Dua, Fortress of the Muslim. So Hajj Salam is one of those step-by-step Hajj apps. It's pretty good if you're going to have a smartphone with you. And another app is My Dua. And My Dua basically is just Fortress of the Muslim. It's a little dua book, which is Fortress of the Muslim, authentic supplications from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hisnul Muslim. So there's an app for it, and if you don't want to have the app, if you don't have a smartphone with you during that time, then just buy the little book. It's a little handbook, Fortress of the Muslim. So it has the du'as for Hajj and Umrah, and it has just different du'as that you can benefit from in different categories as you're going through the process. It really comes in handy, for example, on the day of Arafah. if you're looking for, just different du'as to go through, because believe me, on the day of Arafah, people do run out of du'as at some point. It's a few hours, so especially if that's your first time, and you're not accustomed to making du'a for 6 hours straight, right? You might run out of du'as at some point, but you don't want to stop making du'a. And so if you want to actually take a moment to read some of the authentic supplications of the Prophet ﷺ for different things, it's a very good resource to have, inshallah ta'ala. Some of your preparation tips from a prescription medication, and I'm not a doctor here, but there are two drugs that you're going to hear about quite a bit in Hajj. One of them is amoxicillin, and the other one's zithromycin or zithromax. So people will be prescribing that right and left. Obviously, because people tend to get sick before the Hajj days actually start. Especially people that are overzealous and try to overexert themselves before the Hajj days actually start. They go so strong from the first of the Hijjah until the Hajj days that they're just absolutely exhausted and worn out and sick by the time the actual Hajj process starts. But it's good to have over-the-counter medication just for different things, inshallah ta'ala, to really try to boost your immune system as much as possible. So to really be regular with your vitamin C, and you could have your Sudafed and your chloroseptic spray and whatever it may be during that time, inshallah ta'ala. Vaseline to apply to the inner thighs for the men wearing ihram in particular. That's very, very important. It is going to be your best friend, inshallah, so make sure that you get that, that you have that before you go, or you get it over there before we, if you've got a Medina first package, before you head out to Mecca, make sure that you actually have that. Just be conscious of the type of clothes that you're going to wear while you're there. Having those light material thobes, and just having those cheap plastic slippers that you can buy even in the street over there in Medina, in particular, those come in handy while you're there. Even if you're not typically, especially to the brothers now, by the way, if you're not typically a thobe person, you're not typically someone that would wear one of these, it's very convenient with the type of weather over there and the type of environment for you to just have those light material thobes, inshallah ta'ala, to wear while you're going around. And of course, you could buy some of those when you're actually in Medina. When it comes to your ihram towels, okay, and they literally are towels, right? If you're flying to Jeddah first, because if you're flying to Jeddah, obviously, you're going to need to be in ihram on the plane, because you're flying over a miqat, so you're going to land in your ihram. Make sure you pack your ihram in your carry-on bag, because that happens to a ton of people, that their ihram gets lost in their luggage, and they connect somewhere on the way, and then they end up wondering where their ihram is. So make sure that you pack it in your carry-on, inshallah ta'ala. Otherwise, you can buy it in Medina. So there's no short, I guarantee you Medina will not run out of ihram in the Hajj days. So that's just something to keep in mind over there. You can buy, so you can wear as many ihrams as you want. Meaning, your ihram is a state. It's not necessary. It's not the towels or the clothes that the towels that you're going to be wearing. So you can have 2 or 3 pairs of it, so that when it gets really dirty, and you're not going to have access to to get it washed, then you can easily just put on a different set. And obviously, it's good to have an emergency backup one just in case something happens to the one that you're wearing, inshallah ta'ala. They also have those ihram belts, which are very, very helpful to hold your ihram in place. Those are totally permissible. They have safety pins that you can actually buy here as well. But just keeping safety pins, inshallah ta'ala, especially to hold your ihram in place, that's something that can definitely be used. One thing I would avoid, and the vast majority of scholars don't permit this, are the ihrams that have the buttons in place. So they seem very convenient, but it actually defeats the purpose of ihram in some way, to have ihrams that are like shirts, that have buttons and things of that sort. So it's better to leave it all together, and at the most you could use some safety pins, inshallah ta'ala, to hold it in place, when you need to move it around and things of that sort. One thing as well, so don't bring a lot of money, don't bring a lot of credit cards, you don't need to have all of those things. Just have one card and have a little bit of cash, inshallah ta'ala, to get yourself through It becomes very inconvenient. I tell people this, and I know that it sounds crazy, but if you can go to Hajj with a carry-on and make it out with a carry-on, you've succeeded. I never do a suitcase to Hajj. The sisters are looking at me like that's you, but no, but I'm serious. The lighter you can go to Hajj, the better. The lighter you can go to Hajj, the better, because it's going to be such a hassle with your luggage throughout the process. Luggage often gets lost at some point during the Hajj, going to Hajj or whatever it may be. The lighter you can go, the better. If you can figure it out in a carry-on, alhamdulillah. And you can buy, especially for the brothers, some cheap thobes over there, whatever it may be, to get yourself by. But try to go light, inshallah ta'ala. There's a Hajj guide that's going to be given to you at the airport. There might be some different opinions to some of the things that you've heard. In this lecture, it'll be very minor. But again, you need to stick to one. But to have something with you, inshallah ta'ala. So whether it's this Hajj step by step or something with you for the different steps is something that's good for you, inshallah ta'ala. I definitely recommend having hand sanitizer. Unscented, obviously, for the time of your Ihram. Even if it's slightly scented, it's not a big deal if you use it in your Ihram. Alright? So, because nothing is absolutely unscented. But, even if it's a very, very slight scent, it's not like perfume, it's like a very slight scent, then inshallah ta'ala it's fine. But I definitely recommend a person having that, inshallah ta'ala. You don't have to go loaded with it. You can buy some in Medina, inshallah ta'ala. Having bags, and you're not going to find toilet paper over there in many places. So just having that in place, inshallah ta'ala. You can get that from Medina if you're starting off in Medina as well. One thing that you're also going to see are those different tablets or Gatorade packets or whatever it may be, those different rehydration tablets. Those really do come in handy. And usually what ends up happening is you have 3 or 4 people that brought, some rehydration tablets or things of that sort that are sort of sharing with the rest of the group. But obviously if everybody's counting on someone else to do that, then they're not going to do that. But, it's very important to avoid dehydration, obviously, with the long walks. It is extremely hot, extremely hot. Last year was ridiculous. Every single day was well over 100 degrees. And obviously a lot of walking and crowds and things of that sort. So it's important for you to keep that in mind, inshallah ta'ala. For Muzdalifah, there are no beds in Muzdalifah. There are no accommodations there. So to have what's called a yoga mat. Now over there's a store called Bin Dawood that you're going to see in different places. So if you're going to Medina first or whatever it may be, even Mecca first, to have a little mat, a little yoga mat for yourself, inshallah ta'ala, something to spread out on the day of Muzdalifah to sleep on. It's also something to keep in mind. And one of the most helpful things you can have is a shoe bag. Those really tiny bags that you can put on your back, inshallah, and carry your shoes, because you're not going to be able to put your shoes in different places and come back to them often, especially in Mecca. So to have a shoe bag is really important. Ask your group if they're providing you one. Okay? If your group is not providing you one, buy one. It's worth the investment. It does not violate your ihram, because just those strings, you just kind of put them on your back and you keep your shoes with you at all times, inshallah ta'ala. Very thick socks for tawaf outside of ihram. Now sisters can wear socks even inside, in their ihram. Brothers, for the time that you're going to be doing tawaf and you're going to be doing sa'i and so on and so forth outside of ihram, it will come in handy to have some really thick socks, inshallah ta'ala, or something that can protect your feet, because you're going to get blisters and you're going to get, you're going to have a lot of those issues, especially with the way that the surface is over there, with all the construction and stuff like that. I know they've cleaned up most of it, but you're walking on stones, then you're walking on this, then you're walking on that. So make sure you have that, inshallah ta'ala, to keep yourself, protected. Saudi SIM cards, how does that work, Uthman, now? All right. So Saudi SIM cards have gotten very complicated recently, because they require, you to have your passport. They require you to go through.
They need a copy of their passport and a copy of the visa on paper with them, and they should do it as soon as they get to the airport.
Okay, so have a copy of your passport and a copy of your visa on hand, inshallah ta'ala, because obviously they take your passport when you get to the airport. So to get a Saudi SIM card, you actually have to show that to get that, inshallah ta'ala. But that's just one thing there. Number 17 is don't be a tourist or a photographer. That's really important. I'll sort of talk about that inshallah ta'ala. But seriously, chill with the pictures while you're there. You're there for Hajj. Don't take too many pictures, inshallah. Make 2 copies of your passport. Keep one at home, over here, and with someone in the U.S. And then keep one with you, because your passports go through all sorts of processing. So it does come in handy to really have a copy of your passport with you, inshallah ta'ala. Number 19, patience and a positive attitude. There is no such thing as a 100% smooth Hajj. In fact, my experience is that people that go with the super VIP groups and stuff like that, where they're supposed to bring the Kaaba to the hotel, and all that stuff, you pay like 20 grand or something like that so that you can be nice and comfy throughout Hajj. They're often the most angry and disgruntled groups because they're so disappointed, because there is no way to have a completely smooth Hajj. Things are chaotic. You've got millions of people in this tiny area from all over the world. Things are all over the place, all right? It's never going to go your way. That's actually part of the ibadah of Hajj. Seriously, is that when you get there, no matter how much you've prepared yourselves, you're going to have logistical hiccups throughout the process, no matter what group you're with, no matter what package you're with. It's going to happen. So really have that mindset that no matter what you do, that's going to happen regardless, and it's part of the test of your patience in Hajj. Lastly, don't do what everybody else is doing at Hajj, because a lot of it is wrong. That's sort of like actually most of it is wrong. That's sort of our safety net, and I see that happen to every single group. Every time you get there is that you get in there and you jump into that mess, and then you realize that 90% of people are doing it, doing this, so I should be doing that as well. So people are doing Tawaf, and then they stop at Maqam Ibrahim, and they decide to just start rubbing on Maqam Ibrahim and rubbing their head all over it and stuff like that. So you might think, okay, well, that's what I need to be doing as well. Or I need to kiss it like the black stone when I go by. People, when they pass the black stone, it's, subhanAllah, it's a very simple gesture that we're supposed to give to acknowledge it. But people start going, and all types of stuff like that. And they start like sending all types of peace signs to the black stone and talking to it and taking a moment to interact from a distance and stuff like that. Like every time there's this traffic, as soon as you get to that area, that part of Tawaf, realize again, people, they're very simple people, illiterate people, in many situations. And I'm not saying that as an insult. Just people that are, very simple, that are, coming from all over the world, and they're just, immersed in their ibadah, if you will, and they're also doing what everybody else is doing. So don't do what everybody else is doing. Seriously. Don't even look at what you need to know what you're doing, and there are going to be times you're going to question yourself, because you're like, wait a minute, I wasn't told that I was supposed to do this or do that. You weren't supposed to do this or that, right? So just make sure that you keep to your own knowledge and what you've studied, inshallah ta'ala, with your group leader as you go. All right, so let's get into the fiqh of it. Some of the important definitions for you to keep in mind, because I'm going to be using these words, and you're going to hear these words throughout the Hajj process. The first one is rukun. Rukun. Rukun means pillar. And rukun literally means an act that is obligatory, and if it's not done, the Hajj is invalid. So for example, Arafah is a rukun, right? Arafah is a rukun of Hajj. If you don't have Arafah, you don't have Hajj. You can't do a sacrifice in place of it because it's a rukun. It's a pillar of Hajj. The Hajj is invalid without it. Tawaf al-Ifada, the main tawaf, of Hajj, the tawaf of Hajj. That is a rukun of Hajj, so if it's not done, then the Hajj is invalid altogether. So that's just something to keep in mind. The second word is wajib. Wajib means, in this situation, something that's obligatory, but if it's not done, the Hajj is still valid, and a person needs to offer a sacrifice or a fidya. Okay? So it's mandatory, but it's not to the degree of a rukun, a pillar. A pillar cannot be substantiated by anything else. Something that's wajib can be substantiated by something else, which is a sacrifice or a fidya in its place, in which you'll have a lot of that during and after the Hajj. The third thing, obviously, is a sunnah. A sunnah in this situation is something that if a person does it, they're rewarded. If you don't do it, you're not punished. Your Hajj is valid. And there's no need of Fidya. A lot of times people just bunch it all up, all of the rights of Hajj into one big thing. So, for example, if they miss a sunnah, then they'll want to do a sacrifice. And that's not part of the sunnah to just keep on doing sacrifices and stuff like that, just in case, because I don't know where this falls. So a sunnah, which is a large group of the acts associated with Hajj, is something that's good to do, but you don't have to do anything if you're not able to do it. Then you have manasik. Manasik refer to the rituals of the 5 days of Hajj in particular. There are 5 principal days of Hajj. Now obviously your entire journey is Hajj, but there are 5 days of Hajj, and the manasik are the rituals associated with that. Fidya is your makeup, right? It's your compensation. So if you miss something in Hajj that is wajib, what did we say wajib was? Something that's mandatory, but it can be made up if you miss it with something that's with a fidya. A fidya is the mandatory sacrifice done if you miss a wajib. So if you miss a wajib of Hajj, all right, listen very carefully. You have 3 options. A fidya can be one of 3 things. You can offer an animal sacrifice, all right? You can offer an animal sacrifice. You'll actually see booths there, like in some of the malls or some of the areas, whatever it is, to actually have that fulfilled. I think there's a website, there's an app for that as well. Like a sacrifice can be done, but Allahi.org, I know Allahi.org does it. But you can offer a sacrifice. That sacrifice does not have to be restricted to Mecca or Medina. Okay, but a sacrifice has to be done in that place. A second thing is that you can fast 3 days after you get home. So you now owe for each one of them, if you don't want to do a sacrifice or if you can't do a sacrifice, you have to fast 3 days when you return home. The third thing is that you could feed 6 needy people, which is very easy to do in Hajj. Right? So you could actually buy, 6 meals and you could serve them to 6 needy people in Hajj. All of these are permissible ways to deal with a missed wajib. And there is no preference in order. Okay, you guys understand that? So you can choose any one of them, inshaAllah ta'ala, and they can be a form of sacrifice in the presence of a missed wajib or something that requires a sacrifice in that regard. Ihram, many people, think about Ihram and they think about the garments themselves. Ihram is a state of sanctity. Ihram literally means to be in a state of prohibition, a state of sanctity. So it's the state that's mandatory for Umrah and for some parts of Hajj, and it has its conditions and its prohibitions. Miqat, the word miqat is the station from which you will make your intention for Umrah and Hajj. Okay, miqat is the place from which you make your intention for Umrah and or Hajj. The next 3 words that are on here are the 3 possible forms of Hajj. Okay? Tamattu', and you're gonna, I remember at least the first time I went to Hajj, and, I guess, 2006. The first time I went to Hajj, I remember that people were fighting over tamattu' Quran. It just broke out into a fight, right? What do we do? What type of Hajj do we do? And so on and so forth. There are 3 forms of Hajj here, or 3 ways to go into Hajj or enter into the intention of Hajj. One of them is tamattu', qiran, and ifrad. The way that you are most likely going to do and the most preferred way is tamattu'. Tamattu' literally means pleasure, temporary, right? It's with ease. The reason why you do that is because a person enters through the station. So let's say you're going from Medina, which is where most of us will be, where at least our group, my group will be going through. Many Hajj groups will go through the station of Dhul Hulayfa. As you pass through, or when you get to the station, to the miqat, you make the intention for tamattu'. Now tamattu' means that you will do Umrah and Hajj with a break from your Ihram in between. Why is that important to understand? What that means is that I go in with the intention of tamattu', So as soon as I finish my Umrah, I've made the intention for Umrah for now. Once I finish my Umrah, I can exit my Ihram until the days of Hajj start. This is especially necessary if you're going to Mecca a few days before the actual Hajj days. All right, that you'll do your Umrah, you'll get out of your Ihram, you'll go through the steps of exiting Ihram, and then once the Hajj days start again, then you'll take up the intention of Hajj from the place that you are in Mecca. Okay? So this is the most preferred form of Hajj, to enter with the intention of Umrah, do your Umrah, take a break, get out of your Ihram, and then enter into Ihram once again on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, when the days of Hajj start. All right? Now, let's say that you're going to Mecca on the 7th day of Dhul Hijjah, or on the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah, and it's impractical for you to go do Umrah, get out of your Ihram, and then do Ihram again. Qiran means combined. So Qiran is a form of Hajj where from the miqat, from the station, you make the intention for both Umrah and Hajj with one Ihram. Because it's too difficult or it's inconvenient for you to exit Ihram and go back into Ihram again. All right? So that's called Qiran. Ifrad is the Hajj of the people of Mecca. The Hajj of the people of Mecca. Right? Which is a Hajj without Umrah. Which is why it's called Ifrad, which is singular. Okay? So they simply make the intention for Hajj from where they are once the days of Hajj start, and they don't need to do a Umrah that is with it. So the last two words here, Hadi. Hadi is the sacrifice that's due on the day of Eid if you're doing Tamattu' or Qiran. So it's the full animal sacrifice. It's going to be done by somebody else, most likely. It's really difficult for a person to do the sacrifice themselves. You'll either have a coupon to verify it. In the case of our group, we actually know the person that does the slaughter, so we pay that person, and then that person slaughters on behalf of everyone in the group. We get a phone call that our sacrifice has been done. So Hadi is the sacrifice that's done on the day of Eid for the people that are doing either Tamattu' or Qiran. Okay? Now, Talbiyah obviously is the chant, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda وَالنِّعْمَةَ لَكَ وَالْمُلْكَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَكَ. The very famous chant which you're going to be making inshallah ta'ala throughout the days and throughout the processes of Umrah and Hajj. Alright, so what's the step-by-step now inshallah ta'ala for a person as they're getting into the process of Hajj? The sunnahs of entering Ihram at the miqat. These are the sunnahs now of entering into the state of Ihram at the miqat. A person, both men and women would bathe themselves. So you take a shower that can be done at the hotel before you actually get to the miqat, to the station. Trimming the mustache, trimming the armpit hair, pubic hair and nails, applying perfume to the body. This is particularly for the men, here to apply perfume to the body, not to the ihram itself, but to the body. To clean yourself really well and to apply perfume to the body. And then you can wear the ihram towels on top. At that point, you make the intention, if you're passing through the miqat in Medina, you can do all of those things before you leave Medina, but without the intention of entering into ihram. And then once you get to the miqat, you make the intention. What that means is you do all of your preparation at the hotel. Once you get to the miqat, all you're going to do is at that point, that's where you make your intention for Umrah and Hajj if you're doing Qiran. Right? So, but for the most part, if you're doing Tamattu', are you guys lost here yet or not? All right, good. Tamattu', which is what most people will be doing, then you'll make the intention for Umrah. But the point is, you can do everything in Medina. When you get to the station, when you get to the miqat, you simply make your intention at that point. Now, what if you're passing through the miqat on the plane? What do? Do you go take a shower on the plane, start trimming your, go through all that stuff on the plane? What do? Do it before your flight. You can wear your ihram, and while you're flying over the miqat, usually the pilot will announce it, right? And the pilot will let you know, and it's, a 15, 20, 30 minutes before landing, that you're passing over the miqat as you're getting into Jeddah. All right? So at that point, what you do is you make the intention for Ihram. If you are doing tamattu', all right, which is Umrah without Hajj, because you're going to take a break between Umrah and Hajj. All right, so if you're doing tamattu', at that point you will say, Labbaik Allahumma Umrah or Labbaik Allahumma bi Umrah. All right, both of them are fine. That here I come to you, O Allah, with Umrah. So you're going to announce the intention for Umrah. All right? Labbaik Allahumma bi Umrah, Labbaik Allahumma, Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, Labbaik Allahumma bi Umrah. And so you would then continue on with the Talbiyah. But the point is, at that point, you will make the intention verbally, inshaAllah ta'ala, for Umrah. If you're doing Umrah and Hajj together, so if you're doing Qiran, you're going in on the 7th or the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, then you would say, Labbaik Allahumma Umratan wa Hajj. So you would say, Bi Umrah wa Hajj, or here I come to you, O Allah, with Umrah and Hajj, because you're combining both intentions in one. Otherwise, you're simply going to say, Labbaik Allahumma bi Umrah. If you're doing Hajj on behalf of someone else, now, the major condition to do Hajj on behalf of someone else is that you've already done Hajj for yourself. Then you will say, Labbaika an, and then you'll name the person. So, Labbaik Allahumma bi Umrah, Labbaika an, and then name the person. All right? Now, let's say, by the way, if you're doing tamattu', you're doing Umrah and you're doing Hajj separately, and you've done Umrah in the past, but you haven't done Hajj in the past. Maybe this is a little too confusing right now, but I'll just put it out there, inshallah ta'ala, and then we'll probably revisit it if someone has a detailed question. I can, if I'm doing tamattu', I'm separating the intention for Umrah and Hajj. And many of the fuqaha, including Dr. Salah Hassawi, would allow a person to actually do the Umrah on behalf of someone and the Hajj on behalf of someone else, or the Hajj on behalf of yourself. So because it's two separate intentions at that point, you can do this on behalf of someone and this not necessarily on behalf of someone, or vice versa. So if I'm doing Hajj on behalf of my mother, and I've done Hajj and Umrah multiple times in the past, I could choose to do Umrah on behalf of my father and Hajj on behalf of my mother. I can make the intention on behalf of one person for Umrah, or on behalf for the other person for Hajj, if I'm doing tamattu', because it's two separate intentions, two separate declarations, and there's a break in the Ihram in between. You guys understand that? Okay, good. So at that point, you would announce your intention, and then you would pray 2 rak'ahs. Now, there's a difference of opinion about the 2 rak'ahs here, whether the Prophet ﷺ taught us to pray 2 rak'ahs for Ihram as a sunnah for Ihram, or the Prophet ﷺ simply is teaching us to pray those 2 rak'ahs because they come as a sunnah for something else. All right? But the majority of the scholars would say that there is actually a sunnah for Ihram, 2 rak'ahs for Ihram, and it's obviously safe and there's no problem with that. But if you're passing through at the time of Salah anyway, so for example, you're going to pray Dhuhr, Asr, then in that situation, many scholars would say that takes the place of Ihram, or of any type of 2 rak'ahs sunnah for Ihram, because at the end of the day, it's a sunnah. All right, so there's no sacrifice in that regard or anything of that sort. But it's good, inshallah ta'ala, to practice that, to pray 2 rak'ahs, inshallah, with the intention of that talbiyah. And basically what you would do is you get to the miqat, you would pray your 2 rak'ahs, and then after you pray your 2 rak'ahs, you announce your intention. All right? So you get to the miqat, you pray your 2 rak'ahs, and then you would announce your intention after those 2 rak'ahs. Now, what if you miss this entire process? Let's say that you fell asleep on the plane, and you passed over the miqat, and you woke up and you were already in Jeddah. What do? Go back to miqat? What do you guys think? Or let's say that you're on a bus from Medina, and you knocked out on the bus, you woke up and you're already halfway through. Do you tell the bus driver, go back to miqat? No, so basically once you've passed the miqat, If you missed this whole period of making the intention, then you'll simply offer a sacrifice. You'll offer a fidya. So it's not a rukun of Hajj or Umrah that the intention be made at the miqat. It's a wajib. So because that wajib has been missed, then a sacrifice, a fidya would be in its place. Okay? What about a woman that is on her menstrual cycle? Basically, a woman that is in that state will still declare ihram, and she will still do all of the actions except for tawaf. Okay? So she still will do all of the actions except for tawaf. A lot of sisters make the mistake where they say, well, I can't go into ihram right now, I can't do any of these things. No, a woman will still do everything that everyone else is doing, but she will not do salah, and she would not do tawaf when it comes to the actions of Hajj or Umrah. So she's not going to pray or do tawaf. Now that you're in the state of Ihram, you're now in a sanctified state. Now you're subject to a number of prohibitions. Unintentional things are forgiven. The Prophet ﷺ says, أَعْذَرَ اللَّهُ لِأُمَّتِي الْخَطَأ وَالنِّسْيَانُ وَاسْتُكْرِهُ عَلَيْهِ, that a person will be forgiven for what they do out of ignorance, out of forgetfulness, or under compulsion. So a lot of times, a lot of these things that you're going to see here, you forget that you're in a state of ihram and you do them, or you're combing your hair, you're combing your beard too hard, and some hairs fall out, whatever happens, and a person starts to panic. And a lot of people react in different ways. Many people, what they do in Umrah or Hajj is that they just keep on doing sacrifices, because if I just keep on doing, I just want to make sure I don't mess up. So every time I unintentionally do something or I forget something, or some sheikh said that I might have just violated ihram, I'm just going to go offer a sacrifice. And if there's an app, then you're just murdering sheep on your app on a consistent basis. Like, oops, sorry, another one. Don't have that su'a dhan in Allah. Don't think bad of Allah, okay? So if you unintentionally do something or you forget, don't worry about it, inshaAllah ta'ala. You simply proceed. The things that you cannot do intentionally, all right? These are what we're talking about here. So for men only, to wear sewn clothes that fit any part of your body, that fit any limbs of your body. What that means is that when you wear an ihram, it's not fitted to any part of your body, right? It's a garment or it's a towel that you're wearing over yourself. But to wear a shirt is fitted to you, okay? To wear socks is fitted to your limbs. So makhit here particularly refers to something that's sewn and something that's fitted to your limbs. This is obviously only for men. So, for example, underwear would fall into that prohibition. Underwear is okay, though, for someone that has, urinary incontinence or something of that sort. But otherwise, it falls under that prohibition. So a person will only be in their ihram. Blankets are permissible then, right? Because blankets are not fitted to any part of your body, right? Blankets will be worn over you. Or especially if it gets cold in the nighttime. Sometimes in Mina it gets cold at night. For some reason it'll get cold, and especially the way that the ACs are, they're blowing on half. So half of the tent is really cold and half of the tent's really hot, depending on where you're positioned and where the AC is blowing on you. So it's okay to wrap yourself in blankets, inshaAllah ta'ala, or anything of that sort, because it doesn't fall under the category of clothes. Umbrellas are fine, watches are fine, rings are fine, identification tags are fine, stitch belts are fine, because those don't fit any part of your body in particular. Sandals or slippers that have some stitching on them, they're fine, as long as they don't cover your ankle to where they fit your feet like shoes. They're all fine, inshallah ta'ala. All of those don't fall under the category of makhit. Okay, if a person has to wear, some sort of, if a person has to wrap their ankle because they have some sort of sprain or what, that's fine, inshaAllah ta'ala. If you're going to wear a shoe bag or some sort of backpack, that's fine. All of those do not fall under the category of makhit. Now let's say that someone, violates this, then what's due upon them? a sacrifice. So let's say that, um, particularly with the men, someone says, I'm going to wear my underwear, and I'm going to, then you would offer a sacrifice in that place. If a person had to wear socks, let's say, because they have a wound, or if a person had some sort of need to wear something, if they need to do so, all right, if they need to do so, then they're not in trouble if they need to do so. Okay, so if something needs to be worn for some sort of need, then it's not a problem, inshallah ta'ala. But if something is being worn just because, then it is going to be an issue, and obviously you need to offer a sacrifice. But even if a person is doing something out of need, if they want to offer the sacrifice, inshallah ta'ala, just to be on the safe side, that's fine as well. Number 2 is cutting or plucking hair. So this is for men and women, that this requires a sacrifice. That does not include unintentional shedding through comb, right? If you're combing. This happens a lot. People start flipping out because a few hairs might have fallen. Obviously, you should, try not to be too rough when you're combing your hair, you're combing your beard, because you don't want hairs to fall out. But if they do, it's not a problem, inshallah ta'ala, if it's just unintentional. Clipping nails for men and women requires a sacrifice. Now, what if you break a nail by accident? Or what if you're a nail biter, and you forget at some point, and you catch yourself biting your nails in Ihram? Do you need to go and offer a sacrifice? No, because it was unintentional, it was done out of forgetfulness, it was done out of ignorance, by accident, whatever it may be. But to purposely cut the nails or trim the nails would require a sacrifice. For sisters, covering your face with niqab in particular. Now, this is a difference of opinion amongst the scholars. Why? Because Aisha radiallahu anha mentioned that the women uncovered their faces, that some of the women uncovered their faces. Those that traditionally covered their faces, they uncovered their faces in Hajj. But when people, when they found that it was crowded, or when there were riders passing by, then they covered their faces. So some of the scholars said that if a woman wears niqab, then instead of wearing the niqab here, she could wear something that covers her face, like something like a veil that would cover her face, if she wanted to do that. But otherwise, it is prohibited. Could someone, one of the brothers, inshallah, talk to the kids, inshallah? Uthman, you want to just, please don't hurt them, all right? But just if you, all right. So for a woman that, generally speaking, covering the face is prohibited during the Hajj for women as well. But again, if it's something that a woman does, she practices niqab, she wants to cover her face because of the crowd and things of that sort, then inshallah ta'ala there's no penalty for her. A lot of people there's a difference of opinion on what touching the face here means. So you'll see some sisters that wear niqab, they'll wear a baseball cap or something of that sort, and then there's a veil that's coming outwards. Allah knows best, but that's not something that would be necessary in that case. So a person can wear something, can simply draw something over their face if they really wanted to practice that, inshallah ta'ala. That was quick, man. You did good, mashallah. All right. A person can continue to cover their face if they wanted to, inshallah, just to fulfill that practice that they do otherwise. Now, what about wearing the mask? For sanitary purposes. Does that fall under the ruling of niqab for a brother or a sister? What do you guys think? No. I personally, not only do I think it's permissible, I recommend it. All right, so I recommend if a person wants to wear a mask in Ihram, outside of Ihram, for sanitary purposes, there are a lot of things floating around over there. People coughing all over you and all types of things, and it's very easy to get sick. So if a person wants to wear a mask for sanitary reasons, it's fine for men and for women, inshallah ta'ala, and it does not require a sacrifice. Okay? Covering your head, for men and women, or just for men? For men requires a sacrifice. Okay, so you can't cover your head while you're in Ihram. Let's say that you had your blanket, and just in a moment of forgetfulness, you put your blanket over your head. Don't panic. Just put your blanket down. But you can't cover your head during Hajj. They have this new creative idea, which is to put like a cap that has like an umbrella, like a mini umbrella. Some of you might have seen it. It looks really interesting, but it does fall under the category of covering the head. So just because the umbrella is a little bit off, doesn't mean that it's not a hat. So you can't cover your head. For brothers, you cannot cover your head during ihram. Wearing any type of cologne or perfume would require a sacrifice as well, so any type of scent. Showers are still okay. You can take as many showers as you want in ihram. You just can't use scented, perfume or whatever it may be, or cologne in that situation. What about perfumed soap? Is perfumed soap, a violation of ihram? Okay, it's one of those questionable things, so it's better to avoid. To be honest with you, I personally don't view it as a violation, but it's still better to avoid because it's likened to cologne or perfume or things of that sort. But if a person went into a bathroom and they forgot, or whatever it is, they used some perfume soap or some scented soap, and then they realized that it was scented, you don't have to panic and you don't have to scream or anything like that. It's okay, inshallah ta'ala, just move on. There is unscented soap, there's unscented deodorant, there's unscented all types of things, inshallah. You could use those things. And perfumed soap or scented soap simply falls into the doubtful things that it's better to avoid, inshallah ta'ala. Kissing or touching the spouse, touching your spouse provocatively requires obviously major istighfar. It is a violation in ihram. Some scholars would say it requires a sacrifice. Obviously, if you can't kiss your spouse, then you also can't kiss random people in ihram. So please, keep your hands to yourself and don't kiss anybody else as well, provocatively while you're in your ihram. Engaging in intimacy with the spouse would invalidate a person's hajj altogether. Okay? Believe it or not, it's happened. All right? I've had it happen before where we had a very interesting situation. All right? But, make sure that you're out of ihram, even with the umrah. What ends up happening, a lot of times couples, go to, so I personally, my package is usually known as the honeymoon. We usually have the honeymoon hajj because we got a bunch of young couples that are, holding hands and stuff like that, even while they're romantically throwing rocks at the jamarats and shayateen, sharing the moment and taking selfies and, enjoying the process, whatever it may be. But what ends up happening is that a lot of times we drive into Mecca and, before the couple would finish Umrah, it's not frequent, but it's happened, where they'd engage in intimacy and then they come out and they're like, what do I do now? And it's like, well, you should have thought about that, before you finished before you did that, before you violated your ihram. So obviously, that's something that's prohibited during the ihram. You won't really have to worry about it during the Hajj ihram because there are no hotels anyway, but during the Umrah ihram, it does become an issue. Entering into a marriage contract is also not allowed in ihram. So if you see someone that you like and you decide to go into a nikah, you can't do that during your ihram, all right? Hunting, if you decide to hunt in ihram, that also violates your ihram. So the sacrifice for hunting is that an animal like that which you hunted would be given as a sacrifice. What about insects? Can I kill insects in ihram? Yes. Okay? You don't have to, if you've got a spider on you, if you've got something that's biting you, you don't have to let it go because it's ihram. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ mentioned things that could be killed, harmful things that could be killed while a person is in ihram. And he said ﷺ in a hadith about the crow, the kite, the scorpion, the mouse, and a ferocious dog. So the scholars extended beyond that as well, obviously, when it comes to insects and snakes and things that are harmful. Those things could all be killed in ihram. Scented insect repellents would be not permissible. So I want to clarify here because scented would be something that would have a strong smell to it. That would be an issue during the ihram. Cutting down trees, if anybody likes to cut down trees for some reason, cutting down trees in the sacred precinct also requires a sacrifice. So please don't get married, cut down trees, or hunt while you're in your ihram. I've never had to deal with hunting or cutting down trees. There aren't many trees anyway. Now, let's say you've gone through your ihram, you've entered into that state, and you gonna do it again? And talk to the kids, okay. You've entered into your ihram, you've made your intention, you're proceeding now to the haram. The talbiyah لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. The talbiyah is now sunnah all the way until you reach the haram, all the way until you get to the haram. All right? Now, it is the best form of dhikr in this state. And subhanAllah, like what ends up happening is that when people first start in Medina, they get to the miqat in Medina, then everyone's saying labbaik Allahumma labbaik for like 3-5 minutes, and then within 3 to 5 minutes, then everybody's snoring in their different languages too, right? So you just hear here, and people are talking and having conversations, and every once in a while, everybody say labbaik Allahumma labbaik, and everyone gets excited once again. Try to keep yourself engaged with the talbiyah, inshaAllah ta'ala, as much as you can. It is the best form of dhikr in this state. For men, it's sunnah to do it loudly to encourage everybody around you to join in the talbiyah as well. For women, it's encouraged to do it in a lower voice. It's not sunnah to do it with a leader, as a group. So what that means is that you'll see a lot of people going throughout Umrah and Hajj where one person is going labbaik Allahumma labbaik, and everybody says labbaik Allahumma labbaik, and then he goes labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, and they all say that. That's an innovation. That's not sunnah. So don't join in on that. Don't be a part of that. Just do it yourself, inshaAllah ta'ala, throughout the process. Now you get to Tawaf al-Qudum, the first Tawaf, the Tawaf of entrance into the city. As you reach to the Haram for the first time, wudu is required for Tawaf according to the strongest opinion. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that Tawaf is like Salah. Okay, it's a form of prayer. So wudu is required for your Tawaf. Now, is it okay when I've done my, from the miqat, I've put on my ihram, to not go do Tawaf right away, to not go actually do my Umrah right away? Is it okay for me to take some time to rest in the hotel, if I have a hotel, whatever it may be, to take a few hours and then go do it? Yes, it is. There is nothing that says that you have to go from the miqat straight to do Umrah. However, you'll simply have to observe your ihram throughout that process while you're waiting. All right, so you can go to your hotel, you can go to Aziziyah, wherever it may be. You can take your time to actually go out and do the Tawaf at a time that's good for you. But when you do, inshaAllah ta'ala, you should have your wudu. For the brothers, they will expose their right shoulder. This is only for this Tawaf al-Qudum, the opening Tawaf, where the brothers will expose their right shoulder. And this will end as soon as you finish Tawaf. Not after 3 circuits, but after you finish your Tawaf, you will actually cover your right shoulder. Okay, so you expose your right shoulder, you enter the Haram through any one of the gates, and you look for the green light to start. Where's the green light? The green light is where, basically, it marks where the black stone is, because your Tawaf is going to start from where the black stone is. So you'll actually see in the different stories of the Haram in different locations, you'll see that the green light is marking the beginning of the black stone. Now enter through any gate, inshaAllah ta'ala. You enter into the masjid with your right foot, and here you have the dua. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Allahumma ighfir li dhunubi waftah li abwab rahmatik. A'udhu billahi al-azim wa biwajhi al-kareem wa bi sultanihi al-qadeem min ash-shaytan al-rajim. So you would enter with this dua, inshaAllah ta'ala. You would start right away with your Tawaf. Now, do you have to pray the 2 rak'ahs of entering into the masjid? No, because your Tawaf replaces those 2 rak'ahs. Outside of Umrah or Hajj or one of those mandatory, or one of those Tawafs, if a person goes to the Haram, they have the choice. They could either do Tawaf or they could pray 2 rak'ahs. Okay, like any masjid. All right? But here in this situation, you're replacing the 2 rak'ahs of entering into the masjid. You will go straight to your Tawaf. You align yourself with the black stone. Okay, that's the beginning of the Tawaf. So with that green light, you would signal toward it with your hand. You would simply say Allahu Akbar. If you cannot kiss it or touch it, which is not something that's really easy to do in the time of Hajj, and it's not good for a person to fight over it. There's nothing super special about doing that, right? There's nothing sunnah about fighting over it. And a lot of people go way overboard because of it. And some people, it's like having bragging rights. Like, I got to kiss the black stone. Like, I just fought and elbowed people and moved, fought my way through so I could kiss the black stone. It's not something to do in Hajj. Seriously. If you find the opportunity, you go at a good time to do Umrah and Hajj, and you don't have to fight your way through or elbow and things of that sort, then that's the sunnah. But the Prophet ﷺ also taught to just signal towards it simply and to say Allahu Akbar and to proceed with the Tawaf. And the Kaaba is on your left side. Don't do Tawaf the opposite direction. All right, make sure that you're going counterclockwise. The Kaaba is on your left side. Now, for the men, the sunnah is to do the first 3 circuits of Tawaf faster. It's impractical to try to run. Don't harm people, but there is an added pace in the first 3 circuits of the Tawaf. You will keep your shoulder exposed throughout all 7. And the 7 circuits should not be interrupted. That doesn't mean you can't take a break. Like you can't sit on the side if it's getting too exhausting. But that does mean, sorry about that. That does mean that you shouldn't leave and come back. You can't leave and come back or interrupt your Tawaf. So you could take a break while you're doing Tawaf, but you can't interrupt your Tawaf by actually leaving your Tawaf. If a person interrupts the 7 circuits of Tawaf, what do? Let's say that you have to leave. When you come back, do you pick up from where you left off, or do you start over? Because Tawaf is like Salah, then it's like starting over, so you would start over. Okay? Now, if there's a hardship involved, or if a person needs to use the restroom frequently, or there's urinary incontinence, whatever it may be, if there's hardship involved, it's difficult for you to maintain wudu, for example, throughout all 7, then you pick up where you left off, inshallah ta'ala, and there's no problem. But ideally, what you want to do is that if you don't have that need, then you should start off from where you left off. Believe it or not, number 12 here, if you doubt how many circuits you've completed, all right, a lot of times you think it's simple, it's 7 circuits, but you might get confused and you will second guess yourself and you'll start to doubt. And it is healthy to have someone with you or to count with somebody as you're going through. But if you have a doubt, what do? فَلْيَبْنِي عَلَى الْيَقِينِ. Just like the Prophet ﷺ said about prayer, then build on that which you're certain about. So if you don't know if it's the 4th one or the 5th one, you will assume that it's what? The 4th one. All right? And it's good to have one person with you or 2 people with you, and you're counting together. If you cannot, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is to touch al-rukn al-yamani, the Yemeni corner, which is the corner right before the black stone. If you can't touch it, then you don't signal towards it. A lot of people will be signaling towards it. Why did the Prophet ﷺ used to touch al-rukn al-yamani, the Yemeni corner, and then he would touch the black stone? The Prophet ﷺ actually, used to touch it because it's one of the original foundations of the Kaaba. The Kaaba was built by Ibrahim a.s. in a rectangular shape. Okay? It was actually rectangular. So there was the Yemeni corner, there was the black stone, and where you see Hijr Ismail, you see that semicircle, those corners of that actually used to be part of the Kaaba. So the Prophet ﷺ would touch al-Rukn al-Yamani as he passed by it because it was one of the original foundations. He wouldn't kiss it, he wouldn't do anything special with it, he would simply touch it as he was walking around. If you're there, touch it. Otherwise, you don't have to sit there and give it the peace sign and start to signal towards it or anything of that sort. The sunnah dua, generally speaking in Tawaf, it's open for you. Make dua in any way that you can. Any du'as that you can. And it's good to plan them out. If you want to have 1 circuit for your family, or 2 circuits for your family, whatever it is, 1 circuit for this, 1 circuit for that, to have it planned out, inshallah ta'ala, because it's very hectic and it's not the dua that you do in Tawaf, the nature of the dua that you do in Tawaf, it's not like this dua where you're, nice and calm and you have this time to, it's loud, it's crazy, it's hectic. So it's good to have in your mind what you're going to do with each circuit, inshallah ta'ala, and to dedicate each circuit. But the sunnah dua between al-Rukn al-Yamani, between the Yemeni corner and between the black stone, is رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. This is the dua that the Prophet ﷺ would repeat between al-Rukn al-Yamani and the black stone. Other than that, there is no prescribed dua for tawaf. All the du'as are open. Make dua as an individual. You don't have to join in with a group. You don't have to hold a book. Continue to make dua for yourself. When you complete your 7th circuit, you will go all the way to Maqam Ibrahim. It's just slightly past the black stone. Again, you'll align yourself with it. So you don't actually have to go to Maqam Ibrahim, but you'll keep walking until you pass it, which is just slightly beyond the black stone. Then you will place it between yourself and the Kaaba, and you would cover your shoulder and you would recite, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. The ayah in the Quran, and take the station of Ibrahim alayhi salam as a place of prayer. You pray 2 rak'ahs, reciting silently. The sunnah is to recite Surah Al-Kafirun in the first rak'ah, Surah Al-Ikhlas in the second rak'ah, just like the sunnah Fajr. Okay? And then, and then you would proceed to the rest of it. Okay? So you'd proceed to drink your zamzam, and you'd proceed to the sa'i. Now again, the idea here is you go and you complete your 7. On the 7th circuit, you move beyond Maqam Ibrahim. There's no way to perfectly align yourself. And if it's crowded, you can pray anywhere in the masjid after you pass Maqam Ibrahim. Okay, so there's no way to perfectly align yourself, but the point is you say, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. You would recite that, you would pray your 2 rak'ahs, and then inshallah ta'ala you go into your sa'i. So for now we're actually going to go ahead and break for Salatul Isha. After the Isha prayer, inshallah ta'ala, we'll restart and we'll go into the sa'i and exiting Ihram and into the steps of Hajj, inshallah ta'ala. So Jazakumullah khairan, we'll go ahead and we'll break. And please do try to come back, sisters in particular, try to come back, inshallah ta'ala, so we can start immediately after the salah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.